If you're in your 50s or early 60s, and most of your retirement savings is in a traditional 401k IRA, there's a tax planning strategy you really need to know about. It's called a Roth conversion. And the reason it matters is this. Right now, you probably have a lot of money that's never been taxed. And at some point, the IRS is going to require you to start pulling that money out. And when you do, you'll owe taxes on it. The question isn't whether you're going to pay taxes on that money. The only question is when and how much. And for a lot of people, there's a window of time where you can pay taxes on your terms at lower rates rather than being forced into higher tax rates. That window is what we're talking about here today.
Let's make sure we're all on the same page about what a Roth conversion is. A Roth conversion is when you take money from a traditional IRA or 401k, money that never has yet been taxed, and you move it into a Roth IRA. When you do that, you owe income tax on the amount you convert. That's the price of admission. Once it's in a Roth, it grows tax-free. And when you take it out in retirement, you don't owe taxes on it. Essentially, you're choosing to pay taxes now at today's rates in exchange for never paying taxes on that money again. Now, why would you want to do that? It comes down to timing and tax rates. And for a lot of people, there's a specific window where this strategy makes the most sense.
Roth conversion window typically opens when you retire and closes when you turn 73. Here's why. When you retire, your income usually drops. You're no longer earning a salary. Social Security might not yet have started. You're living off savings, maybe some part time income, but your taxable income is lower than it was during your working years. That's the window. And it closes at 73 because that's when required minimum distributions kick in. At 73, the IRS says you have to start pulling money out of your traditional IRA, whether you want to or not. And those withdrawals are taxable income. Once RMDs start, your taxable income goes back up, and your ability to do Roth conversions at favorable rates often shrinks or disappears entirely. So the sweet spot is usually between retirement and age 73. That's when you have the most control over your tax situation.
Now, here's the thing about Roth conversions. There's no one-size-fits-all answer for how much to convert. Some people think if Roth conversions are good, I should convert everything right away. But that can backfire because converting a large amount all at once pushes you into a much higher tax bracket. You might convert $200,000 and end up paying 32% or 35% in federal taxes when you could have spread it out over several years and stayed in the 22 or 24% bracket. The goal isn't to convert as much as possible. It's to convert the right amount each year, enough to take advantage of lower tax brackets, but not too much that you're paying unnecessarily high taxes. That's where tax planning comes in. You're managing to the top of a tax bracket. Maybe that's $190,000 of taxable income if you're married, which keeps you in the 22% tax bracket. You figure out how much you can convert without spilling over into the next bracket, and that's your conversion amount for the year. Then you do it again next year, and the year after that, until you've moved a meaningful portion of your IRA into Roth.
One more thing you need to be aware of IRMA, IRMAA, and that stands for Income Related Monthly Adjustment Amount. It's a surcharge you pay on Medicare Part B and Part D premiums if your income exceeds certain thresholds. And here's the tricky part. IRMA is based on your income from 2 years prior. So if you do a large Roth conversion, say in 2026, it could trigger higher Medicare premiums in 2028. For some people, that surcharge can be $2,000, $3,000, or even $5,000 per year or more. Does that mean you shouldn't do Roth conversions? Not necessarily. It just means you need to be strategic about the timing and the amount. If you're 63 and not on Medicare yet, You have a couple years to do conversions before IRMA becomes a factor. Or, if you're going to trigger IRMA anyway because of other income, a Roth conversion might not add as much cost as you think. The point is this is a variable you need to account for, and it's one more reason why Roth conversions aren't a set it and forget it decisions. The point is, this is a variable you need to account for, and it's one more reason why Roth conversions aren't a set it and forget it decision. They require planning.
Let's talk about why Roth conversions matter so much for couples, especially in the long term. When one spouse passes away, the surviving spouse often faces a significant tax increase, not because their spending goes up, but because they go from filing jointly to filing as a single taxpayer. And the tax brackets for single filers are much less favorable. What was a 22% tax bracket when you were married might become a 24 or even 32% bracket as a single filer at the same income level. On top of that, if the surviving spouse is taking RMDs from a large inherited IRA on top of their own, they can easily get pushed into a much higher bracket. Roth conversions done during the window, when you're both still alive and filing jointly, can reduce that future tax burden dramatically. Because the money you've already converted to Roth doesn't generate taxable RMDs later. So you're not just planning for your own retirement. You're planning for your spouse's financial security after you're gone.
Here's the last thing we want you to understand. Roth conversions are not an all or nothing decision. You don't have to convert your entire IRA. You don't have to do it all in 1 year, and you don't have to commit to it forever. You can convert 20,000 this year, 30,000 next year, and nothing the year after if it doesn't make sense. The flexibility is part of what makes this a valuable tool. But, and this is important, you need to be intentional about it because the window doesn't stay open forever. Once RMDs start, your options start to shrink. And if you wait until you're 75 and you realize your tax bill is higher than it needs to be, there's not much you can do about it at that point.
So here's what we'd recommend if you're thinking about Roth conversions. First, figure out where your window is. If you're retired or about to retire, you're likely in it. If you're still working, the window might not be open yet. Second, understand your tax brackets. What's your taxable income this year? Where's the top of your current bracket? How much room do you have before you spill into the next bracket? Third, think long term. Roth conversions aren't about minimizing taxes this year. They're about minimizing taxes over your lifetime and your spouse's lifetime. And fourth, run the numbers. This isn't something you want to guess at. You want to model it, see what the impact is, and make sure the strategy makes sense for your situation. Roth conversions are one of the most powerful tax planning tools available, but like any tool, they work best when you use them thoughtfully.
You've spent decades building retirement savings. Roth conversions are about making sure you keep as much as possible. Not by avoiding taxes, you can't do that, but by controlling when and how much you pay. That's the difference between reactive tax planning and proactive tax planning. And it's one of the most valuable things you can do in the years leading up to required minimum distributions.